Give it a second here. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so happy that you're here. This afternoon, Dr. Teresa Gardner from Curriculum and Instruction and Education. I don't know if it's changed to college or school or what. I don't know what's going on, but she's from Education, and she's here to talk to us about strategies that you can employ before, during, and after the semester to ensure a successful online course. So thank you for being here, Teresa.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. Let's see. Is it? It's not on the whiteboard. PowerPoint Live. So the screen has changed just a little. Let me see if I can find PowerPoint. Ah, there it is.
Yeah, so Teams recently updated how they share.
Yeah.
It's confusing everyone.
So help me out here.
Just pull up your PowerPoint as the first thing on your screen. There we go.
Here we go. There we go.
And maximize it.
All righty. So how do I get to where I can see comments, or is there any way that I can? If someone makes a comment.
What do you mean?
If someone wanted to make a comment in the comment box, I don't have. You just let me know if someone.
Yeah, I'll keep track of that.
Okay, that's what I need you to do. All right, so thank you for joining this presentation on before, during, and after strategies for online classes. I am, as Chris said, Teresa Gardner. I've been at JSU for 16 years in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at Education. I help to create teachers. And I've been an online professor for more than 12 years. That sounds like such a long time when I start talking about it. It makes me feel really old. And during the time that I've been working with online students, I think I've experienced just about every way there is for a student to have problems navigating my online course. And some of you have probably had some of the same experiences too. And believe me, it's the little things that we do that make the biggest difference in our classes. Well, before I get started, I really want to thank Chris for inviting me to present today. Without Chris and prior to the Faculty Commons, I started out my online classes by typing my lectures and putting them online. It was actually before we had the video cameras. 12 years ago, things were so different than they are now. We didn't have Teams. We didn't have all the online training that we had, and it was really difficult. And I just can't thank Faculty Commons and Chris for all the things that he's done. I've learned so much, Chris, from you and from the classes that I've taken, and it's just made a world of difference to what I feel to my teaching. Have you ever read or heard something that just made you say, yeah, that, what she said? I came across a statement a few days ago, and it has just really stuck with me. Let's see if I can get it. It's just stuck with me. It spoke to me, and I felt like I needed to share it with all of you here. And here it is. If two people can fall in love online, they can learn. And if you're not an American history professor, put your subject on there online. They can learn it online. That was from Carolyn Spear. She works at Wichita State. She made that comment back in January. And, she says you can learn American history. Well, I think any of us could insert our subject. I want you to think about this statement. And when we come to the end of the presentation, I want us to come back to it because I'd like to hear your thoughts on this matter. Most of us have been using our office computers to design classes. I know I have in the past. Well, I use it to take attendance, keep up with grades, text, email, meet with students in teams. And if you're like me, I had a difficult time during COVID finding the right spot to work in my home. As you see, I'm here at the dining room table, and especially setting up a home office, getting the internet to work, making sure that I was ready for Teams meetings. Before COVID, I just worked on campus. I was always in my office, and I didn't leave until I had everything ready for the next class. I could think in my office space. I can think in my office space at work. But suddenly when that space was taken from me by COVID, I had to find a space. I had to find a place here in the dining room for all of my books, the computer, the speaker, the pencils, sticky notes. I had to transfer everything into my home. And we need to keep that in mind with our students. We've experienced many issues, and I live in a community with inadequate technology and poor to non-existent internet service when you're on the river. It's just Ohatchee is known for poor internet service. And I'm thinking about our students, and I often hear them say that they're in their home and they're competing. Sometimes they're competing with other family members. They may have brothers and sisters that are also in school. Could be the parents are also working and everyone has a device and they're pulling off their internet service and it gets weaker. And when there's so many people in a home trying to fight for a computer, it's hard with everyone trying to use. And other times, some of my students say they're all using the same computer and they have to log in at different times and they have to have what they call a computer schedule. But prior to COVID, I'll be honest with you, I associated my computer at home. When I was home, I would answer some student emails. I might make a odd video if it was over the weekend and it was an emergency situation with a student. But most of us associated our home computers with websites like Netflix, YouTube, personal video sharing. I know my students talk about TikTok in class all the time. When we log into the internet, there's that rush of information. There's just so many competing elements for our time, our attention. There's always those Facebook posts that pop up from family and friends wanting to like or make a comment on something. There's the group chat rooms. There's one for Bitmoji that I joined. There's a special ed one that I've joined over the past year. There are those funny, the mindless, entertaining videos, the videos on how to do anything. Companies are hiring experts. There's a point behind this. Companies are hiring experts to lure us in with their false promises of safely surfing the web and providing a variety of entertainment options. Some of the options are good, most of them are really bad. But once again, they're hiring experts to get our attention. So how do we compete in our classes with entertainment experts? And in one of my first courses through Faculty Commons with Chris and the gang, one of my classmates, one of the people in one of the classes through Faculty Commons made the statement, and Chris, you're probably going to remember this, that she felt like an edutainer. And I love that term because it really identifies what we have to be in our online classes. Educators and entertainers. Chris, you had a comment.
No, I was just going to say I remember that, and it is kind of true.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, according to research, students feel like they're settling for online courses, and they say they wish they could be in a real classroom with the real instructor and with other people. They it's a totally different environment. It's not the same as face-to-face. When you're in a brick and mortar classroom, and all students also complain that they're not motivated to do things on their own in an online class, moving through content on their own. They use the phrase, and the phrase "on my own" was repeatedly used by students when they report their experiences in online classes. They feel like they're on their own. And this leads to today's question: how do we make our online classes more appealing? So I'd like to start out with talking about some things that we need to do before class. And some of the things, just very simple. Order your textbook and check to see, and I've gotten where I do this really well, and I select my textbooks on whether or not it is an e-text. The e-text has been a lifesaver for me sometimes when I would leave the textbook somewhere and I'm out and the student asks a question. I can quickly go to the textbook website and I can pull up that textbook and I can look at a question or something that a student's asking me about. And it makes it really easable, portable. Some students can't afford the prices of our textbooks nowadays. And that e-texts are pretty cool. You can, and as a professor, you can request a copy from the publisher, a free copy along when you order the text. I also like to check with Houston Co-Library before classes start. I want to make sure that my texts are available for students to check out. If they're living out of their car, if they don't have money to buy gas or to buy food, I request that the library order a copy so that they have something that they can check out. Even if there are more than one person checking the book out, at least they have a chance to have the book for a couple of days before the next person requests it. But that's important that we have it in the library available to them. You also want to create your how-to videos. And I'm talking about videos. I had a student email last night. He was very anxious. He was asking me, I don't know how to log into Canvas. What do I do? So I very quickly made a video for him showing him, I gave him the link to Canvas and I gave him the quick tour guide, the quick tour. I had sent this out in an email like 2 weeks ago, but obviously, apparently he had registered for the class like 2 days ago and didn't know what was going on. And it was all new to him. He's a new student. So I quickly created a how-to video for him. You want to do that, how to use Teams, how to find Teams. That's one thing students were always asking me too. So I created a video, where to find the link to Teams, how to download the app from your email. And then just a quick navigation, what to expect from Teams before class starts. Teams for videos for Canvas. That's another thing. How to do things in Canvas. Canvas has videos and I can point them to those, but sometimes they want to see me doing things, me messing up, having to go back. No, look at this. No, oh, that wasn't right. Here, scratch that. Let's go back and start over. And they sort of like it because it makes me real when I can make mistakes and they can see that they're not the only one who's having a hard time. It just makes us all more real. It makes the experience more real. I also, before class, I like to make sure that I've addressed plagiarism in the class. I like sanction statements. And this is an example of a sanction statement. I like to display these where I want the students to limit themselves in some way. Like if I don't want them to use the textbook or notes on test. A sanction statement in your online test, it might look like this. The point of a sanction statement is to make a student stop and think about the positive expectations, because I'm trying to be positive in my classes, for their own conduct, that you're responsible for your conduct. Research has shown that just reading and thinking about academic honesty reduces a student's temptation to cheat on an exam. It reduces it significantly. Also, if your school, I know the School of Ed, we have an honesty policy for students. You can also use the honesty policy, plus you could type in the honesty policy and their response could be to type in their name, that they will honor the school's honor code. That, that short answer field is intended to be the name of the student, and that, I will abide by the honor code, and it says so by keying in my name. So let's get started with checking our course temperature. Let's check and see how easy it's going to be for students to access information. So you want to go into the student view. First thing, log into Canvas, log into the student view, and just go through your course. Click on every link that you have set up for students to make sure they're working. Use the student view to make sure that your handouts, your instructions, the due dates, make sure everything matches. Make sure the titles of documents and your scoring rubrics, the teacher rubrics you use, the self-check rubrics you want your students to use, make sure everything is labeled correctly. Because I've had a few, and I'll admit to you, I've had a few students call me over the years when I would add something and I didn't have the correct, I had used it before, I was repurposing it, I had brought it up, changed a few items, and I would put it in my course and think, oh, wow, I've just done this. And then they look at it and the title didn't match the title of the assignment, and they would get all upset. So I have to be really careful about checking the small things, because it's the small things that students get frustrated with. I also like to put everything for an assignment in one place. So if you have an assignment, you want to make sure that they're not having to run to look at a PowerPoint from a chapter or something that you had them read in your modules, and they're not having to run back and forth, or you want to link it to it if you do. You want to make sure that they're not having to move around in the course too much, because students tend to get frustrated if they have to click too many times, or they have to go searching for information. They stop searching. They just say, I can't find it. Honestly. And I'll admit, I'm tempted to do the same thing when I've been in online courses. If it's not easy to find, if it's not easy identifiable, I get frustrated too. We're all human. It just makes sense to check that temperature of your course. I like to see notices prior to the beginning of class. A positive, a welcome notice, a message that just says, hi, I'm Dr. Gardner. I'm going to be your class professor. Our course is going to start Tuesday, June the 1st. I'm looking forward to seeing you. And then maybe a few days later, another post with, hey, just in case you're getting ready for course and you haven't purchased your textbook, here's what the book looks like. Here's how you order it. And by the way, there's an e-text available. And I give them the link for that e-text so that it makes it easy for them. And I want them to have the book. We're going to be using, and that was another thing in my message. Starting June the 2nd in this course, we will be using the textbook. You'll have your first assignment. So it's very important that you have your book. I want to make sure that we're not waiting 2 weeks in. If they wait till the first day of class to order a textbook, and then they're waiting 2 weeks for that book to come in, that's quite a problem, because when we pick up and move in a 4-week class in the summer, we pick up and we move. It's just like bam, 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 bam. Every day there's something to be done. And usually about 3 activities. Since we're not meeting face-to-face, the activities, the fun things we would do in class, I've had to convert to some type of an activity for the students to do in their own time, and then come back and share perhaps in the discussion board with their classmates. But it makes a difference if your course is synchronous or asynchronous. And since we're not meeting at a set time, I'm asynchronous, it makes a huge difference in how the students feel. They feel so alone. They feel like there's no one there when they need help. You want to, that positive welcome and all those positive comments that you send, they start the class. It sets a good positive tone for the rest of the class, because they start to think of you and see you in a positive manner. So they're going to give you a little more leeway there. I like to send frequent reminders about the course. Like the day before the course opens, I always send reminder, the course starts tomorrow. And I'm big on creating videos and screenshots and cartoons. I love pics and cartoons. I have several Nutcracker dolls, and I have one that's a teacher, and I have one that's a college professor. And so I go to this little kitty. It's a kindergarten website, and it's called Duck Duck Moose. And it's really funny because you can go in there and you make a picture of your, I can take a picture of my Nutcracker, and then I can draw a line across its mouth, and I can, for 30 seconds, I can record my voice. And then I can just post that in there, and I can post that video in my class for my students. And so I can have my Nutcracker say, hey, class starts tomorrow. Make sure you have your book ready. Or make sure you log in at 8 o'clock, because that's when you get all the good stuff. But yeah, I do lots of things to help them. Pics and comics. I like to do the comic strip. So I use lots of emojis, the memojis, the bitmojis. Huge fan of Bitmoji. And so I've been using those in the class. When you're getting ready for class, moving on to something more serious, is you want to take universal design for learning into account when you're designing your class. You want to make sure that everything, your information, is in some type of a format that, like your text, your images, your graphs, your tables, all of your visual content. You want to label it, everything, for students who are using a screen reader. Because you'd be surprised at the number of students who are using a screen reader to read our information. I see, Chris, you said something about that. I did a presentation a couple of months ago about that. You want to make sure that you look at the contrast between the background and the text and your image, that your colors are right. Make sure you're looking at the colors, because some individuals with color blindness have trouble telling the difference between red and green. And the most common kind of color blindness is between blue and yellow. So if you're using a lot of colors, you may need to identify what's behind those colors. Another thing is to monitor the rate of your speech. I know when I start talking, I get excited. I tend to start talking very fast. Sometimes you need to consciously slow it down. The sound, the noises. I remember in my classroom, when I turn on the air conditioner, especially in my videos, I hear the air conditioner in the back. So I have to remember to turn the heat and the air conditioning off. I have to make sure that there's no one outside my office, so there aren't laughter.
It's 3 o'clock.
Coming through. Oh, that's another thing. On my computer, I set the time, and it always tells me what time on the hour. You want to check the timing of your videos, your animations, any types of sounds or simulations, so that students who may have a problem with either visually or auditory will be able to hear it and pick it up on a screen reader. But just be careful of the layout of all your visual elements. Also, fonts. Be careful with fonts. You want to use something like Arial, Helvetica, Calibri. Those types of fonts make it reading easier for students and for screen readers. They're able to read those types of fonts. So, are there any questions about things to do before the course starts, or do you have any comments before I move on to things to do before, during class? Anyone have a comment?
Does anyone have any comments or tips that they use for the class? Anyone have anything to share? And that's a good point, Jimmy, about the light colored font.
Yeah, I did not know that. I actually learned that from a student this semester.
Yeah, you really have to be careful with color contrast. And I know as sometimes as we as instructors we get carried away with color, but a lot of times it's best to just keep it simple because the most important thing that you want students to do is to actually read the text. So um, let's see. Carrie Carrie says also share students how to increase their view to see the material easier. I want to circle back to that. James, you had your hand up.
Yes, back to the light colored on the dark background. So I usually use a white background with dark lettering, but
Hmm.
I noticed the very statement is showing on a black screen with light fonts. Is there a way to change that in Teams, or is that just Teams just going to do that?
Yeah, I noticed that when I was typing too.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a way to change it. Let's see. Let's go.
Okay, well, anyway, that was just where my thought was. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Let's see. Always. In Canvas there is. Let me see what it's called. It's called. Oh, what's it called? Go to the dashboard. It's called. Use high contrast UI. Have y'all ever seen that? It enhances the color contrast between text and buttons. It's if you go and look on your dash. Well, actually, you don't have to go to your dashboard. If you go to your let's see, where is it? Click on your profile icon in the global navigation, and you'll see notifications, profile, files, and so on. At the very bottom, it says use high contrast UI. You can turn that on. You won't see anything different immediately, but if you refresh your homepage, you'll see the difference.
Actually, I've made a big no, and I'll admit I'm going to show you right here on this screen. That's a screenshot. Now the check your course temperature, I typed that in, but the you shall not open your course without a temperature check. That's a screenshot, and the screen reader will not read a screenshot. I would have to type in for my students in the comments that this, there's a picture of Moses, getting ready to part the sea, saying you shall not, and I marked out pass, open your course without a temperature check.
And I'm sorry, but that's Gandalf.
Shit.
Oh, okay.
What did she say?
I said Moses.
Oh, that's Gandalf. Yeah, it's Gandalf.
Gandalf, okay.
But there's another way to get around that on your if you're doing this in Canvas. Let me do that. Let me find a course really quickly that has a picture. Let's see. I'm going to bring in a picture of this course real quick, just so I like to see when I do this. Course images. Okay, so when you bring.
Do I need to close out?
No, you're fine. When you bring in an image, like into the rich content editor in your course, if you click on the image, it'll give you what's called image options. And if you click on that, it has an alt text box. So you can actually type in all the important text there. So for example, I'll take a screenshot of this and share it so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry, but I'm slowing y'all up. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. I'll upload this here in the chat. Can anyone else not see the chat other than Teresa?
I can see the chat.
Okay. So if you open that, you should be able to open that on your side. I didn't take a screenshot of the image, but in that alt text box, that's where you would type in the content, the important. So in this situation, I would type in, "You shall not pass. You shall not pass without a temperature check. Open your course." So by default, the alt text is whatever the original name of the image is. So if the original name of the image is like image.water/1, that's what will show up in the alt text. But you can go in there and edit that. Now, if it's not really crucial content, if it's purely decorative, then you can check decorative image right there as an option. And it's purely for decoration. And the screen reader will ignore it. It'll say it's decorative and move on. So I didn't mean to sidetrack things, but does anyone else have any questions or comments about our tips and tricks you've learned to do before the semester? Okay. If no one else does, I will be quiet and let Dr. Gardner continue.
Okay. So let's move to the during class. It's important to remember that many students are not going to be able to move through the content on their own. So I like to create quick videos where I show them where things are, how to find things, how to set up their email. I mean, actually, I created a video for a student showing him how to set up his email and where to find the link in Canvas. I also had another one to find the link in Canvas. So you want to look for and anticipate trends from students, the questions that you receive. And I always like, if I'm having more than one student, or if this happens more than once a semester, I create a generic video. I keep that I house it in my YouTube videos. And when a student asks me a question, I can just pull up that video. I can just go in and pull up that link and send it to the student so that they have their questions answered. Also, when students email me for questions, I like to think that I need to respond to that student individually, but then again, I also need to cut and paste that response into a class announcement. Because when one student has a question, there may be 4 or 5 who are afraid to answer, who haven't even thought of it yet, but it's going to be something important for them. So I always try to remember it. You want to plan many points of contact where you let the students know when you'll be available, when you can give them additional help, and make sure that you're available at that time. I always tell my students, I'm available to answer questions on weekends, all day Saturday, but I'm not going to answer, and I'll monitor my email. Any question you have, I monitor Teams, but I'm not going to answer it on Sundays. I need one day of rest. I try to anticipate the questions that they're going to ask me about technical problems. One of the questions commonly asked in my classes are about videos and how they play the videos, how they create the videos. And sometimes the students don't think about it, but the videos can be the browser they're using. It's just switching browsers. It's just a very simple fix. I like to use lots of media and videos for students. I think it increases their interaction with the course. They don't want to use the textbook for everything. Another thing, I try to increase the positive points of contact across the course through, in the short terms. It's really difficult for students, as Chris and I were talking before this class. I'm just starting today a 4-week class. And this is not a fluff or easy class. This is a full of information that they need to know in order to move forward in their program. This is very detailed information. It's things that they're going to need to know. And so I feel as though I'm going to frequently mass email the students. It may sound impersonal to mass email, but when you're reaching out and using your email or video, it's helpful to students to just say that you're there. And those videos and emails say, hello, you're welcome in this course. I'm glad you've logged in. That sort of thing. It helps students to see you as positive. Your points of contact, they can be individual, specific emails to students for individual questions, not just about feedback. You want to use the video to say sometimes, hey, you did a wonderful job as a class. And they want to connect more. It makes the students want to connect more with you when you do those things. I try to avoid that illusion of perfection or being the robot professor. I put out messages. When I'm not feeling well, I tell them, hey, I'm not feeling well today. I'm sick. I'll be back tomorrow or Thursday, or I'm just not available right now. I'm in a faculty meeting. That says to students I'm actually a real person, but I'm being attentive to their needs, but I'm working on things, but I may have to put it off. I'm behind the scenes, I'll be working on their work. But, when you're in a faculty meeting or you're attending a conference or something else, I don't want them to see me as some type of machine that I can't get sick, or that you're overly efficient, you grade within an hour of assignment being turned in, that they get that ideal of perfection, and that's not what we are. We're people. They're people. They're going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. They need to see me as a person, so I try to be as transparent as possible. After I've been away, when I am away, I come back and I want to know, hey, I'm back, I'm available. I try to follow up and give them any of the support that they've needed. Another thing that I like to do is to develop swift trust. And with swift trust is a term that's used by a business for meetings where they earn your trust. With swift trust, when a group of people don't know each other, in your class, for example, you get together and the students start to form connections. The students begin to determine if they can rely on us as their professor and which classmates they want to network with in the class. It takes time for new students to trust us and for them to develop a trust in a new classmate. So when you have a 4-week class, that trust has to be established. I have to go for swift trust. I want them to trust their classmates, to know if they can't get an answer, or if they just have an answer and they don't really want to ask me, they can ask each other. I've noticed that also that the way that I contact and respond to students will affect their responses. If a student contacts me with a question and I just go yes or respond with no, then they tend to shorten their responses. Often I will respond to some of their questions. I'll take a screenshot of what they're asking. How do I do something? Where do I find it? I'll just take a screenshot. And then when they're having problems, I'll ask them, could you show me what you're talking about? Where is it in the course? Make a screenshot for me and send it to me. And they get better at making those screenshots. I know some of them aren't familiar with making a screenshot, and they actually will take their phone and pull up the camera and they'll make a picture of the computer screen. And I'm like, I'm sorry, honey, I can't read that. It needs to be something that I can read and pass forward to someone else if I need to. And we talk about how to do a screenshot on the computer. I tell them, for me, it's Command Shift 4. I can take a screenshot just clicking those. And, it's different from computer to computer. So if they have a Mac, then that's the easy way to do it. But then sometimes they have to go and search for themselves, go to the help. How do I make a screenshot? But that's good information for them, especially for my group, because they're future teachers. I like to use Teams for group projects. I've started thinking about Teams for the group projects and the discussion boards. Making the videos where the students can respond rather than using the discussion board in Canvas. I think the Teams discussion board is much more open. I can create a video and pose a question, or I can do a poll. I love the polls. I can do those things with class, and they can just see each other's responses so much easier. Another way that I like to use Teams is if we can create some type of a fishbowl. If I can get just a handful of students to log in at one time and we can hold a discussion, then the others can go back and they can watch it or observe and get the information that they need. So that's very helpful for students. Another thing as far as discussions, are you familiar with the 3CQ model? With the 3CQ model, you have 3 comments. You have the first comment should be a compliment where you start off very positive. You compliment someone on something they've just written. Then the second thing, the second C is a comment. You comment on something relevant and meaningful about what they've written. Be very specific. And then the third C is to connect. Connect it with something that they wrote. Explain your connection. And give details to the person so that you can use sensory. I connect with you with this, and I read something or I've done something that's similar. Connect with the student. And then finally, the Q is a question. Ask a very specific question. My students, when we're in discussion boards, I'll post, and I've noticed if I don't give them a good model, the responses to everyone in the past has been, I agree with what she said. I agree with what he said. And then I have this long string of, I agree. But there's no real meat and there's no real, comments. The students aren't really looking at it and you don't know what their thoughts are. So with something like the 3CQ model, you can get a little more in depth with what they're thinking, and they can explain to each other what they're doing. Now, we have to get our students organized because many of my students are the least organized people on earth. You want them to organize their courses and to get those due dates and the assignments organized, get them on their calendars, and all their other courses, have everything listed that they need to do so that they can budget their time. They need to be prepared, organized. So if you keep a calendar, show them your calendar. Let them see how you organize. Because many times, and if not, I have sent students to JSU. We have some really good help with students getting organized through counseling services. We'll help students who are behind on assignments. They can also help them. They show them how to do things and work with them individually. But it's important that students learn how to block off time to study for courses. They don't have much to do when they're online. Sometimes they think, oh, this is going to be an easy course. It's online. I'm not going to have to do anything. But boy, do they get a surprise when they open up my course. And it's like every day there's something to be done, something to be talked about, something to be read, commented on. So they really do need to block out time every day for your course and for every course they're taking. When students take online classes, they don't have to be somewhere. They don't have to come to campus. They don't have to come to the classroom. They don't have to look us eye to eye. And that's another problem. When they're not in the classroom, they tend to put off their online work. Well, I'll do that later. I'll do that this evening. And, something always comes up and they don't do it. Blocking off that time is super helpful. Get them to log in every day, work on your course daily, think about it. They think, hey, this is just an online course. It shouldn't be that hard. I actually had a student, well, I've had more than one student say, this is online. It shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't have to do this much work. But, my online courses are just as important as those face-to-face courses. And I have to get that across to them somehow. Other students think, hey, it's an online student, online course. My assignment's not due to Tuesday night, it's due at midnight. Well, I can wait till 11 o'clock to get started. And, I'll have that done in 15 minutes. But that usually doesn't work in them being very successful. And that's one thing I've noticed. If I have to tell them, you have to log in, you have to be present if you're going to do well in this course. Another idea is if you were to do some low stakes activities or assessments in the course. So in my classes, we're going to be teachers. I have them create a lot of video. I use video. I expect them to be able to use video in their practical experiences, internships. With COVID, everything's gone online. They've been working with students online. They need to be accustomed to using it. Teams has been really great for that, for helping the students prepare. They need to know how to use video, how to create videos. And so I have them do the video where they introduce themselves in class. And they can show family or pets. Sometimes, well, I have a cat and I'm going to, think this is funny, but we've gotten our animals together and had them wave to each other in class just to get them stimulated. Okay, today, first thing we're going to do tomorrow morning is have your pet handy and we're going to have them and I want you to introduce your pet and we're going to wave to each other. I know it sounds silly, but they actually were motivated to do it. And the next morning, everybody showed up on time and with a pet. So I know little silly things, it's the small things that make a difference. Not all of our students are great at technology, especially making videos. Yes, they watch TikTok, but they watch YouTube, but they're not really good at making their own and getting it into Canvas or Teams. And they need practice. And so one of my assignments is always a big major assignment where they have to do some type of video. Whether they're interacting with material and they're trying to talk about their viewpoint or something, just getting them used to doing the video. And some of them really, really struggle with it. So I like to go with the beginning of class. If they can make that introductory video, hey, and just less than a minute, and I'm glad to be here, and just talk about themselves and get that into my course, then I know that when it comes to those larger assignments, they're going to be able to do that. When your students do poorly, make sure you're reaching out to them when they're not showing up. You really, in an online course, I know we take attendance when we're face-to-face, but online it's easy to let it slip by, especially attendance or a student hasn't posted something and we're not on top of it. So you have to really watch, and if something is an hour late, when I start grading, I go in and I've started posting a grade for them when their assignment's not there to let them know that I'm expecting that assignment. Usually it's in by the end of the day. And I'll get the apology. I had an apology this morning. I'm sorry, I missed the date. I didn't realize, because I put that grade in there and they're not so happy when they see that grade. They know I'm serious. I'm serious about their education. This is their time to shine and to learn this material. And I really need you to be there. I need you to be present. I know it sounds really minor, but encourage your students also to proofread their assignments. It is so, this is something that I had to start years ago when I'm creating my own emails and I'm doing something that's more substantial when I'm writing. I have to go back and reread it. And I need for students to do that. I always find mistakes. Always. I'm the queen of the mistakes when it comes to typing. I'm the world's worst typist. So encourage your students to use grammar and spell check. Another thing you can do is when students are responding in a discussion forum, sometimes, and this would happen in Blackboard, not so much in Canvas, but I remember in Blackboard, I would be typing an assignment, something would happen, and I would lose everything that I typed. And so I learned that when I'm creating something, I need to go to Word and create a Word document, create it, then I can just copy it and paste it into Canvas without the fear of losing what I've been working on. So you want to make sure your students do that. If you taught online, you know that you spent 30 minutes or 45 minutes creating a post or an assignment and then you lose it. That's terrible. So, if glitches come up, just make sure that have it saved. Use Word documents. Sometimes when you want to use exemplary work, my students always like to look at samples of exemplary work. But the problem with giving exemplary work from me is that my students will take it, copy it, and insert. Because we write lesson plans. And instead of researching their own lesson plan, they'll just take mine, change up a few words, and submit my work. And that's a no-no. And you want them to see the difference between high and low quality. And yet at the same time, you don't want them plagiarizing what you've done. We want them to be accountable for what they're doing. So when I'm grading, I have to remember that students expect multiple times to submit. But if we're really going to make them accountable, and if it's true in my case, if they're going to be a K-12 teacher, that they are the professional and they have to behave like a professional. And when you're in a professional environment, there are consequences when you miss deadlines, you don't submit something, you don't turn something in that you're supposed to, or you turn in inferior or low quality work, then you have to face the consequences. And with students, it's the same thing. I think they should have an opportunity to redo the work. And it's always my policy, you can redo the work and you can earn a few extra points. But I'm not going to give them the full credit that I gave a student who did it right, did it the first time, and got it in a timely manner. I don't think it's fair to those students. I don't want to open up a can of worms, but still, I want them to be motivated. I want them to correct their mistakes. But then again, I'll give them a few extra points to help them to get the grade that, a passing grade. So that's the end section about what to do during class. Are there any questions here? Comments?
Jenny, you said you averaged the two grades together. You want to?
Yeah, so when I let students, like if they wrote because I teach English and I'm teaching writing the majority of the time. So if the student turns in a paper late and they, they come to me and they ask, can they have a chance to redo it? I give them the chance to redo it. Whatever the original grade was for the late paper, even if it was a 0, but usually it's a grade. Usually that it's not a 0. There's some sort of grade attached to it. A 0 is just if you don't do anything at all. And then I grade the redo, and then I average those two together, and that's usually the grade that I give the student. Because again, they're I don't want to say being punished, but they're facing a penalty for not submitting on time. And that's spelled out in the syllabus. Or if they just bombed it, right? They didn't understand the assignment, or they did something just really wrong. And so I usually average the two together, but that's just my strategy. I know everybody has different different strategies that they use. And also I teach mostly freshmen.
So you have to, when you get them that young, you have to teach them pretty quickly that actions have consequences.
Yeah, I just always laugh that freshman composition, that first year of composition, that's just like 13th grade. They were just in high school, 2 months before they start my class. So
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yes, I was just going to ask Chris, I mean, with what we're talking about, the grade averaging, I've been kind of playing with Canvas and how Canvas does grades, and I've been using assignments and percentages. I mean, I was thinking about doing something similar, and it sounded like with Canvas, I could just deploy another assignment to that same student with the same features, and it would actually do the automatic averaging for me within an assignment grading feature. Is kind of how I understand the grading works in Canvas. Does that sound right?
Yes. What you would do in the assignment settings, you would choose to average it. So it's part of one of the assignment settings that you can choose. And I actually encourage faculty to do that.
Okay.
On certain assignments because, well, for various reasons. Yeah. But yeah, you can do that in the assignment settings.
I mean, I was thinking if I kept them exactly the same point value, it would actually do it automatically anyway.
Yeah.
The overall summary in the assignment group would account for those being averaged together.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you.
You're welcome. So Teresa, everyone thinks you're done. Are you done?
Well, I had one more thing. There's one more topic about what to do after class ends.
Okay. Okay. Please proceed.
Okay. So after your class is over, those final parting words are so important in an online class. We don't get to physically say goodbye or formally celebrate our time. With COVID and all the classes being online, everyone felt sort of isolated, the stress of sheltering in place, everyone's health fears, and all those changes that we've made. Saying goodbye in a class is important. It's hard under normal conditions, but during this time, it's so important that we intentionally say goodbye and provide our students a chance to closure so that they can make meaning of the class experience and continue to connect with what they've learned in our classes. The pandemic has made school feel less important in the last semester. It's like a bother. Online classes were a bother, a distraction, and they didn't really matter for many students. But they can lose sight of what they've done in a class and what they've accomplished in a year. And potentially they can lose sight if we don't point out to them about how important what they've done in your class is important. It's important to their education, their future, what they're going to be doing. But these are all normal responses that we go through because of what we've been experiencing. We've had a hard school year. But we don't want our students to feel disappointed in our classes or powerless or disconnected, and that you don't want your students to feel that your class didn't matter. So we had to be very intentional in planning the end of the semester. We intentionally think of ways to, you can say goodbye to your students in an online class. You can make a goodbye video. I always like to make the goodbye videos and post some of the information, write it out. I like to review the main takeaways from class because students tend to think when they're doing so much work, you can tie it all together and it's like a final aha moment. That's why we were doing all of this. And it's like, you're putting a ribbon around it. You're making it pretty. And, you want to let them know that they have impacted you also, that you've learned something from them and that you're going to remember them. And, how you hope to see them at graduation. You can't wait to see them when they walk across the stage. And give them, your information and let them know it's okay to contact you after class and let you know how they're doing. You want to, have a personal statement almost of how you love what you're doing. You're happy to have shared it with them. And, you want to talk about what they've learned, what they've accomplished during your course, how they've worked and created things, and, just getting through. You want to let them be able to tell each other and talk with each other also. I think decompression right now, Teams is a great way for students to leave messages. They can post an after class message to all their classmates. It was, great having class with you. In the future, maybe we can meet at Starbucks for a cup of coffee or something. If you ever see me, come up and say hi. You want to make sure that you let them talk with each other. So I want to go back now to that first question I posed at the beginning, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. Is it just me that it impacted, or does this really speak to you too?
I love that statement.
All right,
I'm gonna steal it and pretend like I invented it.
You're welcome to. I mean, it belongs to Carolyn Spear from Wichita State. I came across it when I was researching for this, and I just thought it just spoke to me.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to steal it, but I'm definitely going to use it.
Oh, you're welcome to use it. All right, now everyone's back. Okay. Anyone else have anything?
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Dr. Gardner? Well, if no one has any comments or questions, I want to be the first to. Well, I won't be the first because people have been thanking you in the discussions like crazy, Teresa. So I'll be the first to voice it. Thank you for doing this today. There are a lot of really good nuggets and a lot of great information. I really appreciate you coming and talking to your colleagues today.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. You do so much for us.
Well, we're here to serve. We just want you guys to feel like you have what you need to succeed. So
you've done that.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't, I'm not good at handling or having people say good things about me. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon and can enjoy the weather while it's a little cool. And we'll see you again. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.